Hi everyone, I'm in Fish Ponds, Bristol today, and doing some maintenance on this solar system. It's been here for over 10 years. The customer had it fitted by another company, and basically the system's been tripping out. And then here I found a solar DC connection here. This has got voltage in it, and it's just sat submersed in water here, which is not good. So yeah, that's a good find straight away. These connections are water rated, but they're not supposed to be just sat in water like that. They're not supposed to, it's not supposed to be the case. They should be tucked up here, out the way, outside, tied up neatly out the way. Right, I've put a nice fresh new connection on here now. So this connection is now out of the sludge of the guttering. And what I'm going to do is I'm now going to go into the loft and retest the circuit again, see if it's all gone back to normal. And basically these cables I'm going to go along the whole array. I'm going to whip off a load of these panels. I'm going to make sure that all of these cables are all tied up properly underneath the array as they should be. They shouldn't be just resting, floating on the tiles like this, where they can flap around in the wind and things like that. So this is all going to get sorted out in a bit. But for now, I just want to go up in the loft and check this nice new dry connection has fixed the issue. I've now taken off 3 panels on this section and 3 panels here. That is actually a solar array of the neighbour's house. That's nothing to do with here. They just had it done at the same time. So what I'm going to be able to do now is this gives me a ladder run to be able to get up here, to be able to get access under these panels and this side here as well. And the same on this side. And what I'm going to be doing is any connections that may need remaking off, I will. See this here? These connections are just flapping around like this. I'm going to be getting them all zip tied up, strapped up, get these connectors. These connectors are sort of just there open to be able to get rain coming down, dripping straight down on top of them. Like I said before, they are water IP rated, but it's just, you want to do as much as you can to sort of avoid any more potential for water to get into anywhere. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing next. And then a bit later I'll be doing some bird blocker too. Take a look at this. The customer's been complaining about some water ingress getting into the roof, and look at this, 2 tiles here that never got pulled down. They've never been pulled down in the last 10-15 years. So when they did the install, all the panels got put on top and they forgot to pull these ones down. So all the water's been dripping down here straight onto the felt here, which is really old felt. And look at all this muck that's been building up. That's going underneath the roof tiles, and yeah, and building up there and making it all wet inside, causing problems for the felt, causing problems for the wooden battens that are in here. It's just like a sponge. It's constantly holding wet in this area. So this is a good find. So I'm gonna give this a clear out here and then get these tiles pulled down over, making it watertight the way it should be. Scrub, scrub, scrub. Right, oh my goodness. If you look at all the mess that's on this panel here, what you've got here is a scenario where, with this amount of mess on it, say this is a 250 watt panel, because they're quite old, 250 watt panel with this amount of mess on it. So let's say, for example, it will only perform to 150 watts because obviously it's stopping the sunlight getting to all the cells of the panel. So let's say there's like a 60% loss and reduction. This is just an example. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know it can be significant. So if it's now only doing 150 watts instead of 250 watts, then that means that all the rest of the panels will have the same problem as well. They'll all only be able to pull 150 watts instead of 250 because they're all wired on the same string. So that's something to look out for. And optimizers are a good way of getting around that. They initially, if you're having your installation done, then if you can have what's called an optimizer unit fitted to the back of each one of these panels, and that will optimize every single panel individually on their own. So if this one's only pulling 150, but this one's capable of pulling 250, currently in this situation, like I said, this one would do 150, but then that means they're all doing 150 watts. So whereas with optimizers on the system, if this one can only do 150, but this one can say do 250, and so can this one, then only because of the optimizer on the panel, only this one will be pulled down in terms of in terms of the amount of power it can produce, whereas these ones remain at an optimal level. So that is the difference in if you ever get a quote done or anything like that, and they give you the option to have optimizers or not, that is the difference. Without optimizers, your system is only as good as the weakest panel, which in this case is this one. So yeah, if you imagine there's this amount of mess on this one, then it's the equivalent of it being on all of them in some respects. Starting to look shiny down that side. Lovely. These are the ones I've cleaned, and this side is yet to be cleaned. So let's see. Scrub, scrub, scrub. Scrub, scrub, scrub. You know what? I get a lot of satisfaction out of installing solar panels, but you know what? I'm enjoying this. It's like therapy. This is good. I don't mind this from time to time. I'll hide this video from my wife though. She can't know about how much cleaning I'm doing today. I found a bit of an issue here. They've wired this with an induction loop. What that basically means is that they've wired the positive wire to here and a negative up to there, and then they've wired a cable that snakes its way up all the way up to the top. The problem with that is that it creates what's called an induction loop, and it's basically, in a nutshell, it can attract things like lightning strikes. The way you're supposed to do it is you're supposed to, instead of having one wire here and one wire there and then filling in the, connecting the panels together to get from there to here, essentially, what you need to be doing is bringing both cables out here, the positive and negative out at this point, and they have to run together like the positive and negative. Imagine my fingers along that rail like this, across there, connecting the panels along the way, up here to the next row, and then up there, and then that's where it then finishes. So yeah, essentially I'm gonna have to rewire this whole setup. It's not too bad though, because all the rails are already in place, so it's just a case of just readjusting the cable arrangement to make it safe for future from lightning strikes. I mean, it's quite a low possibility of it anyway, but you certainly don't want things like induction loops on the roof, which can add to it. If you wire it the proper way it's supposed to be done, so it's a closed line instead of an open line, then you will avoid any potential of any lightning strikes. Here we go, look at this. We got more tiles that have been left up. The customer is actually complaining, saying that he was getting, when I told him about the 2 tiles that have been left up, that was actually over here. He said, oh, that's a shame. He said brilliant that you've found that, but in actual fact it was happening in the middle row. This is the middle row. He said it's coming from behind the middle tile. I found it, and this is why. It wasn't any cracked tiles or anything broken. They just never pulled the tiles back down. They push the tiles up, obviously, when they're trying to find where the beams are, and they use them as places to be able to put their feet in, to be able to walk up the tiles and things like that. And they've put the solar panel down and completely forgot to pull the tiles back down to make it watertight. So yeah, I can see that there's some debris in there, so I'm going to clean out the debris and yeah, pull the tiles back down, make the roof completely watertight. So yeah, we're finding lots of things. This feels good. This feels great. So so far I've managed to stop the water leaks in the property, and also I found that connection which was in the gutter, and also found out that they've wired it as an induction loop, so I'm rewiring it to the way that it should be to avoid lightning strikes. So all in all, so far so good. Working my way along now. You can see up here, just got that panel just resting in position a minute while I had to come down and get a couple of bits. So now all the cables are now going to be actually clipped to the back of these rails instead of just being flopped around. As you can see, like this cable here just flopping around on the tiles. So it's now going to be done properly. Everything's going to be fixed to the rails it should be. You can see it there. I've got the bird blocker going across the top there. That's going to stop any birds from nesting in behind the panels and causing issues. So yeah, it's going well so far. Panels are going back in, bird blocker is going on. As you can see, this is the mesh that stops the birds coming in, nesting underneath the panels. So yeah, it goes on these little clips, that sit on the back of the panel, and then these little discs that sit over these little the bit that comes through from the back of the panel. And yeah, they just sort of, like a zip tie, they just sort of go on and then clamp on and hold the mesh. This mesh comes in a big roll, and you unroll it, and then yeah, put your clips all the way along. There we go, got a nice fresh end on here. So this is actually day number 2. I've had to come back to this job because I had to go out last night. I ran out of time because because I had to rewire the array to make it to stop the induction loop. It's kind of threw my time schedule off. But nevertheless, I'm back today. It's nice to see the arrays all looking nice and clean. And yeah, I'm just going through the last bits of getting this last panel connected here, getting the cables strapped up. They're all going to be strapped up underneath the array going back into the loft, and then yeah, going to be ready to get this powered up. And the rain is here, so I better get a move on. Time to do our checks now, make sure we've got voltage. So got this connector connected and just connected in. Got this one connected too, so we've got the 2 ends connected like this, and we are showing 511 volts. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Each panel is about 30 volts each, and obviously it's all depending on light levels and things like that as well, but that's really good. So it's showing that the array is working, and we also have got a positive voltage. It's not showing a negative symbol, so we've definitely got our ends around the right way, which is good. So that's all tested, ready to connect the system back to the mains now. System's all switched back on. We have 538 watts currently. It's a really rubbish day out there, so yeah, we're getting a really low reading at the minute. It's a terrible day, but this will, when the sun comes out a bit, this will jump up into the thousands. Last but not least, we're going to give the gutters a damn good clean out of all the sludge. Glorious job this is. It's good. Not only is it's just a nice little extra for the customer, you know, because at the end of the day, the scaffolding's up here, I'm up here. It takes me a few seconds just to give it a good clean out, but to the customer, it saves them a major job of ever having to try and get up here on ladders or anything like that. Look at all of this. So little things, but go a long way, and are very important. Listen, right, with the bird blocker, this is the reason why we have it. This is the next door neighbours roof here. If you listen carefully. Having a good time under there. That's pigeon life in the neighbours next door. So here's the finished article now. Everything's all been nicely cleaned. I've rewired all the wiring now to get rid of the induction loops. We now have the bird blocker down the side now to stop any nesting of any kind. All the cabling's all the connections behind these panels are now strapped up nicely on the actual rails that are running this way behind the panels, which is good. And I've given the gutter a real good clean out now, so that was absolutely chock-a-block with sludge. So all in all is good. Panels are back together, system switched on, and yeah, a nice little bit of a maintenance to finish the day.